Let's talk about this. Let's look at the title. I mean, how many of us want to bust through the issues that come up when we read this title about microaggressions and racism, and we want to rise above it, but we can't do it alone. We can't do it in a silo. We have to do it in community. And people like Anna Taylor help us do that. She's a global communications change agent. She helps organizations, the individuals in those organizations, the leaders in those organizations, to isolate issues and work with them, find the language, find the connection between people, get down with the reality and then rise up with the progress. And there's no better person to talk about what's going on right now than Anna. And I want to preface how I met Anna. She posted something on LinkedIn, and it was a suggestion that some of the violent phrases we use in the American workplace can be maybe tweaked a little bit. At least we can be conscious of those phrases. And it became viral, and then she received a lot of vitriol from people from all over the world. And she's kind of shocked, but not really shocked, because it went so viral. But a lot of the people who came out against her suggestion that we look at this were people that were sort of naming themselves in a pretty overt way as people that have unchecked microaggressions and racism, and it came out in all sorts of ways, and I'll let Anna discuss that more. But I don't want to really focus on that one meme. I want to elevate the conversation to include a lot of things, but I guess we want to start there, because every opportunity to look at people based on their behavior and not based on their words is really important. When I think about words versus actions, words create mindsets, and mindsets create behaviors, and behaviors create actions. So it's all a big chain. Anna, thank you for being a part of this conversation. I guess let's start from the moment we're in right now, which is where you're reacting really appropriately to a lot of sort of responses, multiple responses to your meme about language. What's your tactic right now? What are you doing? And can you tell us a little bit about the genesis of this and how you're moving forward with it, and what it's emboldened you to think about in the next while? Because you're saying, wow, this has hit a note in society, and I'm gonna continue with this. And not to kill the metaphor, but if you found a note that works, you're going to stretch it out and figure out how to make this impact people at a larger scale. How you're going to amplify this. Let us know where you are. So looking forward to this conversation.
Thank you so much for having me, and thank you so much for having this conversation. I am honored to be here to discuss this today. I want to give a little bit of context for those who maybe haven't seen the original post and subsequent posts and the list, and I'll post the list here. And though we're not specifically talking about the list, I want to provide it as an educational moment, but also provide context to how this came up. Last year, my daughter was working from home with me. School was out. It was a digital learning day, and she was home, and I was downstairs in my office. And I was speaking to someone, and I asked them to shoot me an email. And she ran downstairs with this terrified look in her eye, and she was 10 at the time. She asked me, "Mommy, why would you want somebody to shoot you?" And I said, "Oh, no, baby. I want them to send me an email." And she said, "Why not just say that?" So prior to this very viral post, I actually posted something similar where I noted, like, hey, this is what happened. This is a phrase that I'm not going to use anymore, and it's why, particularly thinking about younger generations who have experienced mass casualty and mass shooting events at a scale that many of us have not. I'm going to be cognizant. Fast forward to this year, in this moment, on Lunar New Year, there were 11 Asian descent people killed in California on Lunar New Year, which happens to be about 20 minutes away from one of the sites that I'm associated with. And then I wrote a statement for our president that Sunday That Monday we went over it, and that Monday we sent it out. We have a community that is of Asian descent, and this was just a horrific event. And also that Monday, in the meeting following that email going out, someone described the project. They said, we're going to pull a trigger on this project next week. And my body tensed up and my mind raced, and I thought, oh my gosh, why would we just say that? There are probably people in this meeting impacted by what just happened. Clearly, surely there has to be a better way to say that. And throughout the week, I just jotted down things I heard that tensed my body up and came up with suggestions. So when I posted it, I was pleasantly surprised how many people found it educational. As a communication professional, and I've been doing this work for more than 15 years, I'm always looking to make sure that I'm as clear as possible, motivating as possible, and the words we use and choose to do that matters. And no one knows the importance of words better than communication professionals. So I was pleasantly surprised and very overwhelmed by the positivity that was shown, and even some of the educational moments that happened when people was like, well, everyone points to, well, that's not a bad idea, isn't violent. And I'm like, no, you're right. The list evolved. People started asking me, how can I say something differently? And I started to provide them and just update the list. What was surprising, though, particularly because of the platform, was how many, not even just micro. I work in the DNI space. I've done this work for 5 years. I understand microaggressions. I was just shocked by the clear racism that was present, and the way the post took off and took a political turn, which gave people permission to be this openly aggressive and racist. Most of the people who were coming to tell me that they weren't going to use the list, that I can't take away their freedoms, was basing it on the fact that they made the assumption that I was just some liberal woke person trying to tell them what to do. And I was surprised by that. Being someone that studies change management, I recognize that people are reluctant to change, any change, even positive. It takes a conscious effort to do something differently. So those who were saying, this is going to be hard, or I can try, and I even suggested try just one, because I know change is difficult, even for myself. I was just more surprised that in the spirit of building an inclusive environment, how many people were openly opposed to that in the work that we're trying to do today.
And I'm going to pick up where Dr. Makita left off in terms of perpetuating stereotypes, perpetuating language. As a communication professional, can you give me your top 3 tools to give people to help shift their language? And if so, when you give these tips about shifting language, how do they become more of a systemic shift? Because language is the tip of so much other. But I think people need tools to be aware and to shift. They need tools. We all need tools. And I'm always a big fan of steps. So thank you for contributing to sort of our growth as a society as a communications specialist who sees pitfalls. Can you give us some guide rails to sort of hold on to, and how deep can these shifts go in terms of a person's awareness? I love this conversation. I think it's just so important because we hear so much, but we don't get tools, and here's our chance. So thank you so much for being here. Thank you both for being in this conversation.
So when I think about tips that I can give to those who are looking to shift their communications to more inclusive communications, I can come up with about 3 different things that I think will be helpful. I want to preface this by saying that my goal with communications is to always be as clear as possible. I started working in a global environment a few years ago, and I really didn't understand, even though I was great at communicating, how difficult it was if you weren't someone that I grew up with or that worked in North America, or not even just North America, the United States, how difficult it could be at times to understand what I was saying. So with communications, here are my 3 tips. Ask yourself, are you being as clear as possible? And when I say that, I mean, think about what you're saying. And if I was someone who did not have any background, context, or knew your lived experience, would I pick up on that? I often share with people, we think that we're communicating at times in the best way possible, but if you think about it for a moment, you can always be a little bit clearer. Here's a favorite exercise I like to give people. If I asked you to make me some eggs for breakfast and you said sure thing, and you went to the kitchen to make some eggs, what eggs would you make? I pause right there because I want you to visualize yourself going into the kitchen, being very helpful and making me some eggs. And then you come upstairs and you bring to me some scrambled eggs. And I say, oh no, I only eat my eggs over medium. There was a breakdown in communication, though no one said anything wrong. So when I think about using communications to be as clear as possible, that's one example. Just think about what it is that you're trying to say, and are you giving as much information as possible for the user or the person that hears it to do what you intend, no matter the background or context. The second thing I would say as we think about inclusive communications is just always be willing to learn and evolve. I've been on this journey myself, and I know that there are many others on this journey. There are people who have talked to me about, oh, you're trying to take away my freedoms, or, oh, this is, I'm being absurd. But if you think about the words that we used to say and phrases that we used to say just a few years ago, you would notice that language has continued to evolve. So one example that I would give is, for example, when I was growing up, people often said the R word, which is to refer to somebody with a different learning ability. Now, if you said that word out loud, in most circumstances, people would cringe. You have to think about the F word that people used to use to describe men who love other men. Or just think about back in the school days, there was the N word published in school books. But language has evolved. Society has evolved. Even just most recently, the use of master bedroom in the real estate field has changed to say, the main suite or the owner's suite, because what master bedroom referred to amongst enslaved people. So the second tip is just be willing to learn. Listen and learn, and take what you would like, but just think about that no one's forcing you to do anything. But over time, society kind of has a way of getting rid of terms and sayings that are no longer serving us well. And the last tip that I will offer, which isn't related to any spiritual journey or anything like that, but more from a standpoint of my world in the communication field, is ask. Ask for clarification when you don't know. I have a lot of words on the list that we talked about that people just, and I learned this through context of working with someone who was from Curacao. And she was very confused by something that someone said to her in a meeting. And one of the things she said is that one of the phrases on the list was just roll with the punches. And she asked, why would I let someone hit me? Is that what happens in America? Just because you're my manager, you can hit me? And I had to explain with her, like, no, that's not what that means. So asking sometimes when things are unclear can help you learn how to make things a little bit clearer. I hope that was helpful.
Well, yes, I do agree. After listening this well, which you shared, I think the focus on the event and not the person is important. The goal is not to win a point or to make your colleague feel bad. It is about helping them understand how their comments or actions are hurtful. And I think it's better to, raise the issue or the point. Or you should, express yourself then and there rather than waiting for 2 to 3 times when, people started targeting you. I think that is the mistake which we or the common people do. When they start to absorb what people start telling them. It starts from micro. but it ends up, kind of becoming a macro situation. And on a higher level, it kind of gets onto your nerve, and that's where the mental illness gets on you, and you become helpless. And then and there you feel that, it is about helping them understand how their comments or their actions are hurtful. So it's better to discuss your feelings about the impact of the incident. And adding to it, I think the perpetrator perspective may or may not be motivated by hostility. Many of the too common incidents of microaggressions based on race, gender, class, or sexual orientation may be a reflection of the perpetrator's, meanness. Or incidents, even patterns of microaggression may only reflect the perpetrator's insensitivity, misunderstanding, or simply ignorance. Regardless of whatever or whether the intention of the offensive communication, verbal or non-verbal, explicit or maybe subtle, is not meant to be insulting or demeaning. The damage still needs to be mitigated, and continuing microaggression needs to be stopped and prevented. I think a small no can be a bigger step. People think that no, saying no is a bigger thing. For some introverts, it's a huge thing to say no. But believe me, starting taking us baby steps, a small two alphabet word no can bring a whole bigger level change in their lives.